guys, welcome to another episode of the Whiskey Diaries. I'm your host Mark Lang, and today we're going to be talking about another one of the whiskey, the experimental series from Glenfiddich. This is experiment number 4, which is called Fire Cane. Fire Cane being a peated whiskey aged in rum cask. Before we delve too much into the whiskey, Glenfiddich's been doing this for a few years now. I'm assuming it's just trying to keep up with the market. People are trying to be more experimental with whiskey, which I find super great, and Glenfiddich has the resources to do something like this. So a little bit of a history with Glenfiddich, with the fact that Caribbean casks. So Glenfiddich owns, well, is part of William Grant, and they own Balvenie next door. The two distilleries are basically next door, and Balvenie has been the pioneer of second maturation. Second maturation meaning that they grab a whiskey and they age it for a period of time on American oak, and then they move it into a different casks. So they started doing the Caribbean casks or the Caribbean barrels back in early 2010s, and that was the Balvenie Caribbean cask or Cuban cask. They changed the name of a certain period of time because they couldn't name it Cuban anymore because they couldn't sell it to America because of the embargo. Then later on they transformed it into Caribbean cask to be able to sell it more internationally. Now obviously they have access to a lot of rum cask. Obviously they own Cellar Jerry as well, so they have a very good relationship with the Caribbean, being able to source rum cask. The interesting fact about this is that they actually buy the barrels full of rum, they bring it to Scotland, and then they sell their rum as wholesale to different rum companies, so independent bottlers that want to use basically aged rum. Now after that, so in this particular case, the experiment was to do peated barley and age it in rum casks. There's a few distilleries that have done that. Obviously, Kilchoman does it, but these guys decided Glenfiddich is not very famous for doing peated whiskey. Now they do have the old malting on site, which makes them be able to experiment a lot more, as obviously the experimental series name came from. So what they do is they just pick their own barley and then they age it in Caribbean casks, or well, they call it Latin casks. So we're just going to try this one. This is, as I said, number 4. We'll be talking about the other ones. That is, we already talked about the Winter Storm, the Double X, and the IPA. So hopefully you enjoy those ones as well. Now this is going to be interesting because the peat is going to actually be very to do with the sweetness of the Caribbean casks, which I find really interesting. There we go. Yeah, so you get the classic Glenfiddich smell, but then you get the slightly peatiness that comes from obviously the peated barley. Yeah, and on the palate is, yeah, that's delicious. It's actually, you get some sweetness from it. You get definitely is a finished rum cask. It's a lot sweeter than the other experimental versions. I personally prefer the ice wine, the Winter Storm, but this is still delicious. If you really like a good rum, you can definitely taste the sweetness. We'll be analyzing and talking about the other 2 experimental series. Hopefully you enjoy the show. Slanjaba.